Cool. Awesome. So, yeah, just wanted to introduce our guest today. This is Dylan, Steve, and Dave Rivell with the Muju Business Podcast. Just to give everybody some background on Dave, he is a serial entrepreneur. He's, owned a bunch of different businesses in his life, and we're super excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to the good conversation.
Definitely, yeah. So can you give us some background on, definitely kind of your first business, what you're doing now, and, kind of run us through it.
Yeah, I would say, being honest, my first business, going way back, when you think about entrepreneurship, I think sometimes it's something that's in somebody, and other times it's something that kind of people are curious about and they kind of cultivate.
Yeah.
I actually am involved with a college level course at Drexel right now, and it's teaching entrepreneurship, and I kind of wonder, like, can you teach it?
Yeah.
Theoretically, the entrepreneur is not in that room.
Yeah.
Like
doing
two businesses deep already.
Yeah. He's like selling like wristbands to the
Yeah,
guys
exactly.
when they come out, right?
Come out of class,
Yeah.
So, but for me, like to that point, I used to, in elementary school, going all the way back, I would see, hey, I could buy a box of candy and then sell it for $0.25 a piece, buy the box for $8, and $0.25 piece gets you $20.
Yeah.
Kind of. I kind of enjoyed that. I'd have a backpack with school bags and a backpack with candy.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
That was the beginning, But it was fun, and since day one, I always enjoyed like the people side of it, honestly. Because like people would want to come get their stuff, and it was cool. Like you got to know everybody and whatever.
Definitely. Oh, Dave's got the candy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah. So you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But I would say my first entrepreneurial venture, I actually respect there are different levels of entrepreneurship. I would say there are a lot of folks who just kind of go for it right out of the gate. You guys actually stand out for me like that. You guys put it all on the line, and mad respect for that.
We definitely did that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
If you don't know their story, you gotta hear their story.
Yeah.
But so I did. I kind of always had, coming out of school, had that corporate job or that background. Just something to kind of make sure. Pay the rent, feed the family, that kind of
bills
thing.
Are paid. Yeah.
But I was working a job for an insurance-based company where I had territory up and down kind of the East Coast, 4 states, but a lot of shore territory in that. And, I figured I'm driving around anyway, so I wrapped my car in these T-shirts and then started a company called EBTs. And it was supposed to be the next Life is Good or whatever.
Yeah.
Sure. So I would go do my job. So that was like really important to me too. Is like I wanted to excel in the role that I was in, and then use the freedom and flexibility that came from there to explore some things.
Right,
yeah, exactly. So I would kind of do that by day, and then finish up a little bit early, and then hit these beach towns and go in all the surf shops and all the everything.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. It was kind of like you get some encouragement, and then boom, and it's a lot of this at the beginning in the journey, and so it's like you just learn to keep going,
right?
know?
Yeah. Well, one sale is like that's everything when it starts. So
absolutely.
so it's like it's as good as it can get, right? And then you don't have one next day like this sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just got to keep going,
right? Yeah.
But I still try and like even yesterday I was going to an event in town. And there were these young ladies selling Girl Scout cookies outside, and I was like, "Dude, they're here. They're trying. I'm buying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And because I remember people like gave you a chance, and it kind of like every little chance you got gave you a little bit of encouragement to keep going.
Sure. Yeah,
even if it didn't turn into something.
Yeah.
So that was my first hustle.
So was EBTs supposed to be the way to retire? Like when you were starting it, was the idea to build it to a company that became from your side hustle to your main hustle?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I set out with that vision, to be totally honest with you. I think, so for me, I think you got to know what motivates you. And for me, the motivation was just to see what you could do. There wasn't this big goal or big house or fancy car or any. That was never, and still is never my motivation. It's just to see what, like, just focusing on something, heading in a direction, what you can accomplish if you try. And so I think, totally honest, it was just, could you get it off the ground?
Gotcha.
Could you turn it into a brand through hustle? And for me, there's also there's a family component to this, because at the time, I think my oldest was just being born. And that does change your entrepreneurial flexibility. If I was really doing it and before family and all that kind of stuff, I would have been the guy like in the the VW bus. Who's like, living it out like grunge and just up and down the
with
East
a ukulele
Coast.
or something.
Exactly.
On the beach.
Yeah, I'm like one left turn in my life away, away from that absolute lifestyle.
To insurance now. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell everybody, my dad was like ex-military, my mom was like a big time hippie and into that whole culture.
Oh,
and
man.
So I kind of
Quite the
navigated
byproduct.
that world. But both sides are definitely there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So your main business right now is Element Risk, which
Yes.
is can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a property and casualty insurance firm based in Westchester, but we have 12 locations throughout the kind of mid-Atlantic area. And again, I really enjoyed the nature of that business. It was kind of a problem to solve in the sense that someone would come with a situation, you'd have to kind of deconstruct it, find the solution, put the solution together, and go back. So there was a lot of fun in that for me.
Yeah.
And like really taking time and care with people. And again, it came back to that people side. Like I wanted to understand their story before I worried about like how to cover some risk.
For sure.
So it definitely was a wonderful fit from that regard. But again, with that entrepreneurial lens of what I looked at is I used to go to a lot of trade shows and everything, and you just looked around the room and you saw the opportunity. So the demographics today in our business, 36,000 independent insurance agencies in the U.S. I think it's like 28,000 that are going like of retirement age in the next 5 years.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So for us from day one, we said it was client acquisition, talent acquisition, agency acquisition. It's in our original business plan, and it's still to this day. And it was, if you don't have clients, you're not making it to phase 2. You got to survive. You got to feed your family, pay the rent, all that stuff. Talent acquisition, you can't get anywhere without a good team. You guys know that.
Yeah,
part
for
of,
sure. Oh, yeah.
And then agency acquisition was a relevancy issue because if what's happening in our industry is private equity's coming in very, very hot and heavy, and they play hard, right? They can do things financially that we cannot do.
Yeah.
But they may not keep an office in town, or they may not do something. They might be motivated differently. They have obligations with that money. So we're kind of keeping that old school, independent, community-focused culture, but bringing like large resources to it.
Sure.
We have 12 offices now and big goals for the future.
That's awesome.
So we'll see if we can pull it off.
Yeah. So, and then that's your, pretty much you would say what, like your main, your day-to-day, like, and then you now kind of have a bunch of other sort of side hustles you're involved in too, right?
Yeah.
You've kind of expanded. Can you talk a little bit about what else you do, and in terms of, being an entrepreneur, not just the one business you're doing now? And
I would say, so like day to day, I'm 100% focused on the agency and building that and creating a great culture for the team. So the side hustle, if you will, now is what I look for is that spark in other people. And again, it all goes back to like doing the first thing, doing the little things well, because if the agency hadn't gotten off the ground, like I wouldn't be able to invest in anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like you got to do the little things. Like I was a baseball player growing up, and it was like, do the little things right, the big stuff will take care of itself. Do the little things in practice, do the little thing. And so even culturally, we try and keep our head down. Every once in a while I look up and like celebrate for a second or whatever. And then put your head back down.
Yeah.
And so for us now, for me personally, now it's more about seeing that spark in somebody, and then really just coming behind it. It's not necessarily like from a ability, from me being able to do extra things. Like those days are not there for me right now. And I like to be focused with the work that I'm doing.
For sure.
But where I really enjoy spreading the wings is to see the spark in others and kind of come alongside them. Yes, financially at times, but then also too, just like in general. Usually if there's a natural motivation, if you say, hey, I believe in you, I want to be around you, but I'm also going to show you that, like with this investment. I want to be along for, I hope you guys go on a great ride. I could see it happening. So let's see what happens. And it's back to that, like there's no big crazy goal. There's no nothing. It's just, let's see what happens. And we just for the first time got our whole company together in Hershey, like 2 weeks ago at this point. And sometimes they ask us, like, why are you doing this? You know, are you building this so you can sell to some PE firm or whatever? And we actually showed them the clip from Forrest Gump when he just starts running.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and I reached the end of town, so I kept going.
Yeah.
I reached the end of Alabama, so I kept running. I got to one
since I've gone this far,
yeah, exactly.
might as well keep on running.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that might be the most unstrategic thing we could ever tell you, but that's what we're doing.
Right. Like you actually enjoy the run of it. Like the actual, the process of it is more important. Like you're doing work for the sake of the actual work. That's what you enjoy. Yeah. Not just like, oh, once we get there, things will be great. It's like, no, I actually like walking down this path.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, I mean, I definitely appreciate that. How do you balance like the vision statement for your company and keeping goal setting top of mind when you have more of a, I'll use it for lack of a better word, like laissez-faire attitude in terms of like what the end goal is, like how do you define your mission statement? How do you keep yourself and your team on track when you don't have that like clear cut, vision for where you want to go?
Yeah, great question. So maybe that's the combination of like the military and the hippie.
Yeah.
Because I would dare say, if you were to ask, I think we could get 60 out of 65. If you were to say, what's the vision and goal for this company, you'd get the same answer. It has to be a $50 million revenue, super regional, privately held, independent insurance agency.
Gotcha.
And we've run the numbers. We've shown literally a map of these are all the offices now. If we do this, these are where the offices will be. We're looking in this state, and like you see people going, wait, you're looking in Knoxville, Tennessee? Are you kidding me? And defining that, and then say, well, at this revenue, we're 65 people. By the end of next year, it's highly likely we're over 100 people, just based on just doing what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So you do, I think, have to have the mark, but I know in my heart of hearts, like it's the journey side that's fun.
For sure.
And so, but I don't want to be a boat floating in the ocean.
Of course.
either.
Yep.
Because I think as human beings, as teams, like you need that. You need a direction.
They got to be rowing
in
the same direction to actually get anywhere, right? Or otherwise you'll go nowhere really fast.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's like an African proverb we talk about all the time. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And like we talk about that a lot because everybody rowing in the same direction. But it's also I don't know how to describe it. It's like if we get there, we get there, and if we don't, we don't. Like that doesn't define our team. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define. It's like I'm really genuinely enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And that's like a weird, like deep thing.
Yeah.
To
No.
say.
Really. Yeah.
But that's the truth, man. Like And I think it can get sideways. I think for me, it did get sideways for a little bit. I've had investments go south on me. You guys know that. I've talked to you guys about that. And that shook something inside me, and it was like, I think I was putting a little too much of like onus on the fact like this working out defines something, and it doesn't. That's just like a journey part. That's So like you got to try, and if you're not afraid of failure, like if it doesn't define you, then you can fail. No big deal.
Yeah.
Fail again. You try again. You fail again. Maybe like too many failures.
Too many. Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
After like your seventh one.
Yeah.
But no, that's just kind of been the journey of it.
Yeah, but that's interesting because even though you don't have the end in mind, you still have concrete goals that the entire team can focus on and achieve. Yeah. And when you do achieve it, where you go from there, that's beyond the lens, but you still have that goal in mind. It's I've never heard that type of perspective on the vision of a company. Because it's cool.
Wouldn't you say for somebody starting out that it's like you said, you want to just enjoy it, right? You want to just do it because you actually enjoy the work, but you have to set those goals, especially early, to say, hey, like I gotta find a way to make sure I can, build this to the point where it can be sustainable, right? Like if you want to go from a side hustle, so you have to set. So it's like it really is, like you said, kind of for you, it worked out perfectly. You've got like the hippie side and the military side, right? You kind of combine both. Like I got to be really disciplined, but then also kind of like enjoy it in the general sense, so that I'm not too focused on once we get there, then things are good. It's like
That's 2 weeks ago was a very surreal experience because you know how it is when you start up, like you're just trying to survive, right? You're just trying to like
Make it to tomorrow.
You got it.
Yeah.
One day, literally one day at a time.
One day at a time, yeah.
One payroll at a time.
Yeah.
One,
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Every entrepreneur I've ever
I've come out of pocket for payroll before.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like,
Oh,
I don't
man.
know. We're not getting it any other way. So
Yeah.
this is not happening. And this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
So I think probably anybody's been on the road has had that happen to him, frankly.
Sure.
But it's just like if you need the balance of having like that be a beacon that you're heading towards, and the ability to kind of just enjoy that process. Because when I was looking back this past week, and there's things that I miss that were in the early grind that aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like you don't want to rush through the process of like every movie you've ever seen. If this was like, I'm thinking of Rocky in my head, it was so cliche. But like it's the training scenes.
Yeah.
The fight scene's pretty cool, but it's the training scenes
Yes.
that lead to the fight
Yes.
scene. You know,
Yes.
Or
Right.
like if you want to do any goal, you start little. You know, if you want to run a marathon, you get off the couch first and that kind of stuff. So you don't want to rush the process either. But it's hard when you're like trying to survive. You don't see that. You know.
Yeah,
what I
you
mean?
just think everything will be good once I get to the point where, man, I don't have to worry about payroll again. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Or at least I
exactly.
can have, once I have an office, then things are good. At least
Yeah.
that's what we were like. I know I was like, man, once we're there, everything's good. And then you get there and you're like, oh, well, maybe that's actually not how it is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm actually never going to get there. I'm just going to enjoy my process of achieving the goals. Yeah.
I had a mentor say to me, "You are running towards a finish line that does not exist, and you need to check that."
Yeah.
Because it was always about the next step.
Yeah.
And like there, when you get there, you're gonna think like literally at this last meeting, rewind 10 years ago, I'd be amazed that we could even afford to put 60 people at the Hershey Hotel. Or whatever. That's never happening.
Right. Yeah.
But then at this meeting, it was like, so where do you go from here? You know, and there was like this constant friction between enjoy this moment and what is not what is next, as in like not satisfied with what it is. But now there's responsibility of like you got a team that wants to go somewhere. You say you're gonna run, like now everyone's ready to run. You better open the gates up so that everybody can run. Like it's a different responsibility now, and so that might be. I don't know which is heavier. I think it's a privilege to be in that spot to get to think about that.
Right,
When you're in survival mode, you can't.
You don't have time. Yeah. You just, whatever we got to do, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, you literally don't think about it. There's actually something, if I can go off topic a little bit.
For sure.
We're looking at like expanding our family through adoption, and so they have, but specifically an older child, and we did a training on trauma, and they basically talked about upper brain and lower brain, and when you're in a state of trauma or fight or flight, you can't think about things like planning, goal setting, vision, mission, like it's not there. And they actually broke it down, like for these kids, that was the context, but it was from a business perspective.
It's the same thing.
Powerful.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, that
Like-
gave me chills just thinking,
Yeah,
because
I
it's
was just
so
about to
true.
say.
When you don't have that foundation, you don't have. It's so unstable. You're like, who cares?
Yeah, you
3-year
don't get- you don't
picture.
get to
Who
think
cares?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
A quarter? No. We got a month. I mean,
Yes.
hopefully, let's make
Yeah.
sure rent's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the kids' world, that's safety. Where am I eating next? All
Yeah.
these things. And so, like, if you're able to, wherever you're at in your journey, if you're physically able to think about vision and future and all that stuff, it's like a really good sign. It's basically your body has like, think of the old train track, like, you know,
Yeah, you've
like,
shifted. Yeah.
and now you get to go
Yes.
up into like your upper brain, and like that's a gift in and of itself, you know. But that if you can't see it, it might be because you're in that survival mode. It doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
It's just it's got to, at some point that
Yeah, but that's a cool
shift.
barometer for people, because I mean, you saying that has just like enlightened me in the sense of like, however long ago I personally was stuck in that cycle of making sure everything was good and trying to get my feet under me in my role here, and now I do think about vision and the future of the company, and that is a great way to symbolize like the different stages of business, because they are
Absolutely.
fundamentally different. And you can't, like you said, you can't focus on the vision when you're in that fight or flight, but then once you're able to, it's like you said, it's a self-awareness of like, okay, maybe things are a little bit, even if things aren't perfect, they're at least stable for me to just now start to try to enjoy more the process, and that perpetuates, the success because you're enjoying it and you get to have more time, and then the whole thing goes.
But it does take, at least for me, there was definitely an overlap of time where I just was like, I'm still surviving. And then you're like, oh, actually, maybe I should start thinking longer. You know what I mean? You're just like, no, we're going to get through next week. And it's like, no.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, they're thinking 6 months from now. Like, oh, 6 months from now. When I'm there, sure. You know what I mean? It's like, so you're like still work that way. And then you start going, oh, geez, I kind of got to take that next step into saying, oh, okay, we're a more mature company than when we just started, and that's a hard, it's not just about the company. It's almost more of a personal battle, I think, from being the leader to making that shift, for sure.
In our business, there's like a renewal reality. So people hustle to go get a new client, and then but if that client stays with you for a long time, theoretically there's revenue that happens on annually or whatever.
Yeah.
And they actually call that poison in the veins within the industry, because it can kind of lull you to sleep of, hey, I don't need to work so hard anymore. I don't need to focus on growing. And so we run across a lot of wonderful people and who are serving their communities and doing all these things, but maybe haven't kept up with technology, or the team doesn't see a vision, or all this kind of stuff. So I think that for us, because of that entrepreneurial drive or whatever, the acquisitions are almost, it makes you keep like the edge sharp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you could theoretically start to fall asleep a little bit.
Right. Because I have the clients and they're paying every single month, and we're kind of, we are where we are.
Yeah. Like if you guys have a ton of real estate agents that are referring business all the time, and you're like, hey, we had the best year ever. Like, we don't have to work as hard as we did last year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like, it's almost like taking that blade back to the grind.
Yeah.
Sure, finding your own reasons to keep it sharp.
Yes. Well, because that's the other side of the coin is getting over the survivor mode, but not losing, like, not to use the Rocky analogy, but the eye of the tiger, right? Like that ability to go, I can go deep, I can go get after it, right? That's you got to kind of like like everything. There's like both sides of the coin. You got to try to figure out where you make sure you stay in the middle. Yeah. What would you say was a big, if somebody's starting a business, or they're starting a new business, or they're transitioning from an old business to a new one, what would be a big takeaway from your first business to your second business? Now, I know you've been involved in multiple, but what would be a really big, thing that you would impart on somebody that maybe they could, on their first business, get closer to you on your second,
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. Where my mind goes on that, honestly, is I think on your first business, you see all the upside.
Oh yeah.
I think yeah. On your first business, you see nothing but blue skies, right?
Yeah.
I think on your second business, the mental equation's a little bit different. You have the pros, you have the pluses, but then you weigh the minuses and then say, is it worth it?
Yeah.
If I am successful, what does it look like? Can you get there from here? Where at the first time it's like, oh, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I think that would be my perspective on that. Just a little bit more realistic, maybe the second time around.
Yeah. Would a good analogy be almost like the first, boyfriend or girlfriend you have? Like they're perfect, they're awesome, and nothing will ever go bad, and they're, everything's great, and then it's like, oh, geez, well, maybe it's not perfect.
Yeah, we've got to live with them every day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, geez.
What does that look like?
Yeah, they shower once every other week. That's not good. Whatever. Yes. Like, so then the next one, you're like, okay, well, it's not all perfect. I got to find out what's not. Yeah.
And think through that, and then weigh it. It doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
But it's just you're processing better almost,
For sure.
You're saying, hey, they don't shower every 2 weeks, but that's still fine by me.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's weighed, it's measured. Yes. And then you make a decision.
It's not saying there's no bad, but I'm making sure I acknowledge that and take that into account, and I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Well, and you want to know a very funny story that you might not know about? So when you first were inquiring about investing in us, the one thing you had mentioned to Dylan and I, you're like, I love everything, but I'm just not 100% sold on the kids driving the trucks.
Yeah.
And we're
That's
like,
my insurance coming out.
But with that being said, Dylan and I were just like, yeah, dude, like you don't know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Like we've driven the trucks, like you haven't. Stay over
cool.
there, Mr. Insurance guy.
Yeah. It's fine.
Keep living in risk land.
Yeah, right.
Lo and behold, we had some issues with truck drivers with the young people, and we had to pivot and turn.
Yeah.
So that was just super funny that you nailed that one right on the head. But using that experience for us, now I think we've honed our seeing around the corner with things that we haven't experienced yet. And that's kind of like what I'm taking from what you're saying is your ability to just peek around the corner, see potential issues that you don't even know exist, but like if you put yourself in the shoes of the owner and saying, all right, what could potentially go wrong and how are we going to navigate this?
Yeah.
I think that that's the skill that I've even personally have developed more so as we've gone from, moving you Westchester to Muju franchising. I already think, I tried to think, around the corner and seeing like, okay, well, if this happens, how do we navigate this? And this is potential here because here's a weak point it's crazy how it intertwines as you develop the entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you think you probably are looking through a different lens now too, because now if you solve a problem, you don't solve it for you solve it for your organization.
For sure.
And so the impact of every little thing, and it's interesting because like as that scales for you, you're going to see, oh my goodness, this degree matters.
Yeah.
Like this 1 degree matters. You know what I mean? Because it over the course of the organization.
Oh,
what
for
it
sure.
do.
Yeah.
But I think too, like you said, to walk in the shoes of, I would recommend that too between business 1 and business 2. Like I think you can, at least metaphorically, walk a mile in the shoes of that business.
Yes.
In the sense that like in business 1, you're skipping down the street,
Yeah.
Whistling.
Yeah.
And the other one, you're like actually walking and taking it in. And
Yeah.
like, this
Right.
might be good. This might be bad.
Yeah.
Eyes wide open.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That sketchy guy on the corner might not be a good dude.
Yeah. But we say that it's fundamental too for us for insurance because there are certain branding or images that are insurance is like, don't do anything. Like risk management, the best risk management would be never get out of bed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
don't do anything.
Yeah.
But ours is like go live your life, and we'll prepare behind it. And so I think from a business standpoint, that rings through as well. Go do and try and all those things, and you might fail, but you figure it out as you go, and you don't stop trying,
Right.
kind of thing,
But what I would ask, and we kind of talked about this before we started a little bit, was, using your insurance background and all the different industries you've been in, how do you compare when you're looking at different industries, whether it's like we had said, maybe margin, or like how do you factor in those risks when you're, whether you're thinking about investing or if you're giving somebody advice, on what kind of business to get into or what they should think about, before they start or when they're going to, join one?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned it. One of the things I think a lot about is that margin is what is, and you can run the numbers on that. What is the profitability margin? Because to some degree, maybe it's risk management, maybe it's like starting in a basement and having nothing and like knowing you need to create a backstop that doesn't exist otherwise.
Yeah.
What does the healthy business look like? And is there room to make a few mistakes? Because if your projections are, if everything goes perfectly, then
Right.
I would argue you're pretty much behind the 8 ball at that point.
Yeah.
Because
It
know
won't.
as well as anybody, it ain't going to go like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So to be able to absorb a few things and refine as you go and that kind of thing. So looking, for me, what I look for on the investment side, as far as like to say, first is the people, always. You guys said something in maybe the first meeting, maybe the second meeting, and it is of all the things, I'm sure there's other reasons, but the reason that I wanted to work with you guys. First, I saw you operate when there was no conversation about business. I just saw who you were when no one was watching.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like 1. 2, you said to me, if this doesn't work out, you can come collect your money from under a bridge because that's where I'll be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all in.
I should have a drink, but I'll give you a sip. Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm all in. The boats are burnt, and here we
Yes.
go. That was 2. So like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then I also saw smart, dedicated, all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
well, thanks. Yeah.
I was looking at
Good luck.
Oh, that's why he's here. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. I'm just a good looking
One was pre-med.
Yeah. One kind of went to class. And here he is. Yeah.
We'll let you guys figure out who. But so all those things though are the people. So that's first and foremost.
Yeah.
Then I look at margin. Like what is the effort to get the more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have such respect for people in the restaurant industry. That just seems like you got to be almost perfect to get it right. And right is amazing. And 1 degree wrong could be catastrophic.
For
you
sure.
know? And it's funny because you see that in that industry. You see restaurants that boom and restaurants that don't. And so like weighing those kind of things, what does the industry allow for? And then I look at scalability. You know, that's really important for me. Is there's a big difference between someone's vision of I want to have a donut shop and I want to be the next Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
So that's just either in there or it's not, and just kind of finding that out. And that for me doesn't determine investment. It's just I want to know what it is. Just like we talked about with the other stuff. Just it's a weighing feature. Like,
Right. Yeah.
it might be great. They're still awesome. It's never going to be the next Dunkin' Donuts. Totally cool. They're great. I'm in on them. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Support somebody's dream. Do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Or some you take. It's like a moonshot. You hope it is the next
Thing.
Starbucks or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and that's if somebody's looking at something, you don't have to always say, well, can I make this, a $10 million franchise or new business? It's like, no, it could be just something that's really good. Like you said, that if I really enjoy it and there's good margin in there, I don't have to make it the next.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I think that's so important, and I don't think that's talked about a lot in the entrepreneurial world.
100.
Like everything's the next big thing.
Yes.
There was nothing wrong with saying what you want, the lifestyle that you want, and going after that. If you want to, make a living, feed your family, and coach your kids in soccer, and this provides
You
that,
won. You're
do
a winner.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you set that, you determine that. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like it doesn't have to. You don't have to blow everything
Yeah.
up.
Stop
and-
saying I have the Uber of. I can't stand that.
exactly.
I have the
Right.
Uber of the Uber. What do you mean?
Yeah.
How about you just have your thing, and then
Right.
if
Yeah.
it blows up, great. But like the next
Yeah.
Uber of, you're not the next Uber.
Right.
That's fine. You know. So I agree
there's nothing wrong
1,000%.
with that. And calling that shot, we see it all the time with agents who aren't sure about selling. They say, I really want to grow, but then they're not. They're saying what they think people want to hear.
What they
almost.
should say.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
I've had other agents say, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to ride this thing into the ground. It's going to take like 17 years for it to completely go away. I'm like, thank you. Like,
Right.
that's honest. And you've
Yeah.
figured it out, and you know what you want, and you're doing it.
Yeah.
Just call your shot.
For sure. Yes. Well, it also like it goes kind of to self-awareness, like knowing what you actually want. You know, a lot of people don't. They think it sounds good to be like, oh, well, right, like, because I'm going to be the next agency, I'm going to be the next Element Risk. Like, are you? You really want? And even if you are, do you even really want to be? Like, are you actually self-aware of what it would be like to be Dave and hustle until 9 p.m. 7 days a week? You're probably not going to do that. You know? Yeah.
I think too. There's like I don't know. It's just I think that's where the hard work lies. The hardest question I think people have to answer is like, what do you want?
Right. Yeah.
When we buy an agency, we tell the agency owner, you want to double your income, double it. You want to work half as much and do it. It's just going to have an output, like it's a lever. It's going to affect dramatically up or down.
Yes.
You could take no income. You take. You tell me.
Right.
You just have to say what you want.
Yeah.
And we can't start until that question's answered. I think that's a big part of the entrepreneurial journey of like figure that out and then go chase it hard and don't let someone else define that for you.
Yes.
You don't have to be the next Uber of whatever. Like you just be an awesome mom or dad or doing your thing and crushing it
and still win.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As long as you define the winning parameters and then you actually try to achieve it.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
it's not about.
Yes.
It's like there's no scorecard.
Yeah.
This isn't a school. You don't get an A at the end.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you got to answer to your kids, your spouse, your mirror. You know.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
I agree. 1,000%. Yeah. Definitely. Cool. You have any questions for us or anything like that?
Questions for you guys. Let's see. I would say, I do. What would you say you've learned the most in the journey? Look, if you do take a moment to stop and think, what would you say you've each learned the most thus far?
So I would say the biggest thing is just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it's all screwed up.
Yeah,
and me being on the operations side of things, I'm kind of like the person who's like putting out the fires.
Yes.
So like as soon as like a little fire pops up, I had such a tendency, especially before, to be like, all right, well, this whole thing is trash. Might as well just quit now.
Right.
Whereas I've kind of settled down now, and when those little things pop up, it's like, that's just something to handle. And then kind of almost treating it like a job. Like when an issue comes up, if you were an employee, it doesn't mean you quit your job. Like you just handle it and then it's done. But when, especially for us starting this so young, a lot, like our whole professional livelihood has been predicated on this business. So a lot of times when those little things that popped up, it's like you had said before, I feel like my self-worth is at risk here. And this is a reflection of me, and I put all this work in, and it's not perfect. And now I put all the stress on myself. So I think like just being able to appreciate that it's a work in progress and it's not perfect, but that doesn't have any bearing on the success if it's perfect or not. It's what direction are you going in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say understanding that like a sport or a career, kind of using that, it's you don't win the championship in the first game. You don't win the game on the first play, and you don't build a legacy if you want to be a Hall of Famer the first season. So it's like I'm like I know we can be here. I know we can do this. I know we can do this. I know I have this ability. I know we as a team can do this. And it's like yes, but not today. And it doesn't mean that you're failing. It just means that like in trying to enjoy the journey, like you said, but also understanding, like trying to think more long term, because I could see like the potential of the business and of myself and of our team. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it.
Fast forward.
Right. Exactly. But it's like you said,
get
it's like don't. Not only do you not get to, you shouldn't want to, because when you start saying, hey, like I want to enjoy this, and then now having some perspective of saying, man, when we were like kind of really small and we didn't have as much stuff, like there was a lot of benefits that I wish I had today. You know what I mean? Like it would have been, it'd be nice to be, 21 and we're just kind of moving and we're doing whatever. And like, now I'm like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that, I was like, oh, once I get there, everything's great. It's like, no, you should not only enjoy the ride, but understand it like you got to play the long game.
Right,
the bigger your goal, it's going to take, a longer period of time. And I think that's the biggest one I learned is that, even if I had the ability to, which I I'm not sure I ever did or we ever did, but to be like in that Instagram thing where it's like in a year you sell it for $1 billion. I don't think I'd want to. I don't think it's almost like, would you really want to be born super rich? It's like, I'm not sure I would, because I feel like I miss out on some of the experience that I've gained, and it shaped my character. My entrepreneurial character, I feel, is shaped because of the you gotta, it goes like this. It's in steps, man. And it's not linear either. It's not just up. No. It's down and up and down and up and oh my God and oh wow and oh gee, like that's how it goes. So I think that would be the biggest, like, for me especially. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yeah.
One other one that I think is could be a good one. I don't think it's talked about a lot too. Like I personally, I'll editorialize my question. I don't really believe there's anything as a self-made person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Can you talk to us a little bit about partnership and like what I would call the power of partnership? Maybe let's go mostly pro. Maybe a con too. You know what I mean? Like, but like what you guys have learned about maybe each other and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually just talked about this a little bit before, and we were saying like, I think it's sometimes, you get lucky, and I think we definitely got lucky, like you said, like that self-made thing. Like I think having someone to balance you out is so huge. Yeah. Like having someone to kind of give you that other side, because, like we always talk about, I tend to say, we're going to push. Yep. And Steve goes, We like to say it's like defense, offense, like Absolutely. Football team. Yep. Like I'm like, let's go, let's score. And he's like, well, we also got to make sure we cover, because
it comes at this cost.
Exactly. It comes at, and what did you think about this? So I think that's a huge pro of partnership, because it's hard to be really good at something, and I think people that are generally good at something or focusing on something, you almost have to not be good at the other side.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like I think when I'm my best,
definition, you're not looking at it.
Yep. Right, my best version. I think when I'm like pushing, then I'm not thinking about the downside maybe as much, and sometimes Steve balances me out. I would say that would be a big benefit. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, on a con basis, I guess, the one thing I think of is margin-wise, it's more expensive to have another person. Sure. And there's sometimes there's speed issues, because, of course, if it was just me, we're doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the benefit is the negative. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, but the negative is, okay, if we want to make a decision, of course, we have to talk about it. We're lucky that we're pretty aligned with what we want to do, so we do make decisions quickly, but certainly not as fast as one person can make them. You know what I mean? If they want to just jump into it. So that would be like a negative compared to if you're just on your own. You can just like, I'm just going to do this. Okay, you're going to do it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Better have good friends around you, though, who are like, yo.
Yeah.
You have no checks and balances.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much have the same answer. I mean, on the pro side, I absolutely say that the balancing out is huge, because I don't necessarily believe in luck in the purest sense. Like I don't believe that like there's just lucky people, but I will say the only thing in my life that I genuinely wholeheartedly believe was lucky was that Dylan and I were so compatible business wise.
Yeah,
because a lot of people have experience, as we do, with partnerships that don't work out, and you cannot see that coming, especially when we were so naive in our business career. I can't quantify how that was like so lucky that we were able to just mesh.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the pro that I would harp on is the balancing out, because I know I'm self-aware enough to know that if I hadn't met Dylan, I probably would still be planning this out right now. Like that's just who I am. Like I'm going to plan it, that's a huge benefit of partnership in terms of, filling each other's voids. And more specifically, as we were talking about, having someone who pushes the envelope and have the other person that makes it happen.
Right.
Just go back to the traction book. You have your visionary and your integrator, and it's so vitally important. And we just luckily just had those skill sets that were ironed out. Just because we're who we are. I don't know about a con. I mean, I genuinely can't think of anything like right off the top. I mean, sure, like the superficial stuff, like the money, it'd be nice to make all the profit, but it's just deeper than that. Especially when we were talking about where we're going. Like I don't really think about what my cut is going to be or what it could have been. I guess what I will say is, when I start another business and it's more like it's a more pure passion project, I 100% would do it alone, because I, similar to what you were saying, is like I want that to be my thing. So I guess like the con would be, weighing someone else's opinion, but for what we're doing here, it's perfect. But if I was to do something on my own where it's, hypothetically it's jiu-jitsu, I want to open a jiu-jitsu gym and I want to sculpt it in my way.
Right.
That's where I think the partner could be a con, because it affects how your vision of what you want to do, how that's going to play out. Like if someone's just a money investor, but they want to have equal,
Or
leverage.
me telling you got to franchise it, dude. Come on. Let's do it. What are you talking about?
Like,
there's only one other. Yeah. What do you?
So I would say.
It's an art form, man. Exactly. You don't sell this. What would you say?
On a partnership, I would say I feel very lucky too, and I just kind of think of every place I've ever been alone. I've always wanted to call somebody and be like, yo, you should be here. You should check this out. This town's awesome. This mountaintop's amazing.
Yeah.
You want to share it with somebody. So if you are, and I'm not saying we're at the top of any mountaintop. I'm just saying if you're lucky enough to get anywhere, put one foot in front of the other.
Yep.
Under that journey stuff, it's more fun to do that together.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to get somewhere to say man, what, to reminisce. I can't tell you how often I have friends and colleagues who are even in our business, outside of our business, but who are kind of going it alone, for lack of a better way of saying it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way their business evolved or whatever. And they talk about it a lot. So I don't even think I know all the benefits. I hear them from people who don't have business partners a lot. Man, you can bounce ideas off each other. We joined this group of high performing agencies across and we got off that call and we were like, dude, you and I get to do that every day. That was a Tuesday.
We're always texting
and challenging each other and bouncing ideas. And so we're the same way from day one. We didn't know about visionary and integrator. We've read I love the book. So practical. What we said from day one is, listen, my job is to make sure there's gas in the tank. You make sure the engine runs well. That's how that was our layman's terms.
Offense, defense, same thing.
Exactly. It's all something. But to be complementary is good. And it's, you have your days where you're like, God, if they just saw things the way I saw them, or I'm sure both sides have that.
Absolutely.
But I think ultimately it's better for you, better for a team, better for a business.
And I can give you some perspective, the only solo entrepreneur I know really intimately is my dad.
Yes.
And he really struggles because he's more on Steve's side in terms of like sort of like he doesn't push the envelope enough, you know. Not that
Right.
he's afraid of risk, but I think sometimes maybe he doesn't push it on that side, not because he can't do it, but because he's
Yeah.
focused on the other side, right? And it's
Yeah.
hard sometimes to put on, like, to switch both hats, you know, like anything.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a huge benefit to have a partner for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent, but it's all I know. But I also naturally always sought that out. I was lucky to grow up with some really good guys who were like brother relationships. You know what I mean? And so I always really valued that and was lucky. Like you said, we didn't know when we were starting out that it would work that well. He and I met in O'Hare Airport on a job.
Oh, no
way. Oh, really? Yeah.
For the same job.
Wow.
Dead serious. We were talking like sports or something like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're like, oh, what are you doing out here? Oh, job interview. Oh, get out, me too. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, what kind of thing? He's like, I don't know. I sell bricks, but it's something in insurance. I was like, dude, I don't know. I work for the government, but it was insurance too. It's so crazy. And then we start circling and we're like, dude, I hope you get it. Like, And they hired us both. So, you get lucky sometimes. You know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's makes the journey fun though, because
sure.
it is a process and it's fun to kind of work hard at something with someone else. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah, you have to have some semblance of luck. It's not, I guess, pure self-made, but I think there's definitely that element, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool, guys.
Cool. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
thanks for your
having
time.
me. Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
It was
Anytime.
fun.
Anytime.
Awesome.
All right. Until next time.
Yep.
Yep.